Chucky wanna play?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
They're here.
Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Gruesome Task podcast. My name is Deonte, and I'm here with my host,
Jose. It's nice to be here. Let's get another week started.
Yep, thank you for everyone for listening. We do appreciate all the support that we've gotten so far this season. Today we're on episode 9, and we're going to be talking about a movie called The People Under the Stairs. So we hope that you all do enjoy. First off, though, if you want to keep up with us and follow us, you can do so at Gruesome Task Podcast on Instagram, as well as at The Gruesome Task on Twitter. For myself, you can follow me at xdeontems on Instagram and at _under-the-knife on Twitter. And where can they find you at, sir?
On Twitter, I'm at that guy Jose, and then on Instagram, I'm j.a.gallegos. Yeah, those two right there.
Awesome. And then as well, for those who have not done so already, you can still head over to Horror Pack and subscribe to that. Use the code ITFOLLOWS and you can save yourself $3 on your Horror Pack. That includes the DVD or the Blu-ray bundle.
Yeah, I just want to stress how great this subscription service really is. Getting 4 movies every month for $20 is a steal. It's $5 a movie almost, and you get some great horror titles. I know I've recently watched The Exorcist 3, great movie, and came specifically in that horror pack, and they have like exclusives and stuff, which make it really exciting. You get to see things that you haven't seen before.
Yep, exactly. So everyone go ahead and check that out if you are interested. Before we do hop into some details with the film, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Jose?
No, not really. I'm ready to get into this movie.
Okay, perfect. Well, we do have People Under the Stairs. Before Jose gets into some of the nitty gritty with the film, I did want to go ahead and talk about that. If you want to own the film, you can do so with the standard Blu-ray, which is $9.99 through Amazon. Shout Factory also put out a collector's edition of the film that retails for $18.89 currently. Oddly enough, you can still also buy the VHS for $9.48 shipped, and then the DVD copy is $14.98.
Yeah, so People Under the Stairs came out November 1st, 1991. The runtime is 1 hour and 42 minutes. It was written and directed by the one and only Wes Craven. Great guy. Very great movies. If you're familiar with his work, it's Nightmare on Elm Street. He did The Last House on the Left. Both great movies. Our producer is Stuart M. Besser and Marianne Madena, I believe that's how you pronounce that. Probably butchered that. It was put out with Universal Pictures. The budget for this film came in at $6 million, and the gross, which is pretty surprising. I had never heard of this film. It came in at $31 million, $347,154. Sorry. Our cast: Brandon Quinton Adams plays Fool. Everett McGill plays Daddy, or just Dad. Wendy Ruby played the mom. AJ Langer played Alice. Ving Rhames played Leroy. And Sean Whalen played Roach. This was actually kind of a surprise to me as well. It won an award. Wes Craven won the Special Jury Award and the Pegasus Audience Award. 2 unfamiliar awards for me. But I was pretty interested into looking into those, and they were just really small time awards. But it was nominated. Brandon Quinton Adams was nominated for Best Performance by a Younger Actor with the Saturn Awards, which is pretty cool. I thought he did a pretty good job in this movie as well. And then this movie was nominated. It had 6 nominations for Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. that included like best film, best director, supporting lead, and so forth. I thought that was pretty cool as well. I think the cast really stood out to me in this film, as far as performance wise.
Yeah, that is very interesting because typically for films that earn or are at least nominated for so many awards, they are well known. You hear about them all the time. They're one of those things that you see people from those like horror Twitter accounts people tweet about. And I've, just like you, I had never heard of this film until we decided to do it for this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I came in this blind, but it just surprised me. I think of just like the past few weeks, things that we haven't seen like Blackula and so forth. It definitely surprised me as far as how good it could be. I knew a bunch of the actors that were in it. They've been in other things I've seen, but seeing them all together, it really brought it. I think that's what made the movie. I think the cast really made this movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the cast a lot. Everybody played their roles very well. The acting that they did was superb, from the way that they said their lines, from their facial expressions, everything like that. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I know you mentioned some of the actors in previous roles they're in. I feel like the big one for me, just because I'm such a big fan of it, but Brandon Adams, who plays Fool in this movie, who is the main character. He was from The Mighty Ducks, which is arguably my favorite like Disney franchise of all time, and he was also in The Sandlot.
Yeah, I love The Sandlot. I recognized him instantly. I was like, oh man, he's gonna probably kill this role, hopefully. And I had completely forgot he was in The Mighty Ducks. That's another great Disney film.
Oh yeah, baby, Mighty Ducks. I love it so much. Now I want to watch Mighty Ducks.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted, since we're talking about the cast, AJ Langer, who played Alice, and Sean Whalen, who played Roach. These were the film debuts for both those actor and actress. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. I know I seen Sean Whalen in a bunch of stuff, I guess, that came out afterwards, like Never Been Kissed, and I forgot what else he was in, but yeah, I did really found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then the other thing with Sean Whalen, I know we mentioned it before we actually started podcasting, is how he was 27 years old when he did the role for this film. So it's very interesting how much later in life he got into acting, compared to a lot of people start out as like child or teenage actors and then go from there.
Yeah, it kind of gives me hope here. Let's make it in the movie business, huh?
Oh, I mean, you can, sir. I mean, you got the face for TV.
Hey, I appreciate that, sir, but let's move on here.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. I know we're going to save our fun facts and everything for the end, as we usually do. So without further ado, a skiddly diddly do. Let's talk about the beginning of this film.
All right. So we got People Under the Stairs. It opens up. You got the title sequence. You got the people under the stairs going across the screen. And then it goes into a tarot reading. So it's Fool and his sister's giving him a tarot reading, kind of for his birthday. And she tells the story of how Fool got his nickname, and she shows him the card. And the description of this card is kind of difficult, but it looks like a fool, kind of like a jester, and he's about to walk off this cliff. There's a dog next to him, kind of warning him he's about to walk off the cliff. And behind him, there's kind of flames going on, and she describes these as the sun flames. And she tells him, and he's questioning it. He's like, well, that guy's about to fall off the cliff. He's a fool. And she's like, no, this is a good kind of fool. And she's saying that the fool notices he's going to walk off the cliff, but the spirit dog is also kind of, warning him that he's about to. And she then goes on to say that he's going to turn around and go into the sun flames. And he asks, well, wouldn't he get burned? And immediately she says, well, only the boy version of him. And then he's going to come out the other side, a man. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little thing to open up. Kind of gives us the layout of what we can kind of expect throughout the movie.
Yeah, it was. I didn't expect it to really open up like that. And it does it. I mean, pretty much based off of this kind of opening scene, it tells the tale of Fool, or Poindexter is his real name, of exactly what's going to happen to him during this film. And right after that kind of scene, we get to see Fool, and he's in a very, very dirty house. His mom was there, like, crying, and we find out it's because she's sick, she's very ill. The girl reading those cards off to him was his older sister, and he ends up, who's it right there? That's Leroy. And Leroy pretty much tells him, it's very interesting in how he doesn't sugarcoat things for Fool, even though he's a lot younger. I mean, we find out he's 13, but I mean, that's still a younger age. He pretty much tells him straight up, your mom is sick. This is why y'all are getting evicted. These are the people that are evicting you. You need to get this money. Do you have money? Fool says no. Obviously, he's a 13-year-old kid. He says, well, I know a way you can earn some money.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. Throughout the movie, Leroy kind of expects more out of young Fool, which is like, you got to grow up and be a man, be the man of your house. And like you said before, it's a very rough apartment, and you can kind of get the sense that this family is poor, living maybe in a very rough area, in these really bad apartment complex maybe. And just the way that he basically comes out and says, like, your family's broke, you late on rent, they're charging you 3 times, you got to step up and be the man. Which it stands out to me because it kind of relates in the real world, as far as that type of attitude. Like, little boys are expected to just grow up and be a man and start providing for their families.
Right, yeah. And within the next scene, we end up getting Leroy. I believe it's basically kind of like later on that day or the next day. He's talking to the sister and telling him, your building is owned by, these white people. They have no remorse for your family. You're the last family that's in this building. They want to tear it down. They're in the real estate business, and they want to essentially build on top of it. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And I have work for Fool that he could do. And the sister's going on and on, talking about how don't get him in that stuff. He's a good kid. He wants to be a doctor. And Leroy, pretty much, like we kind of mentioned, he tells it how it is. He says, how are you going to put him through school without any money? Like, that costs a lot of money. And they're like, he needs to provide for his family now.
Yeah, exactly. And when he's saying this to Fool, he's got him like by the shirt, pushed up against the fridge, and he's like, "Are you ready to step up? Are you ready to do this? Your mom." And he breaks the news to Fool, who didn't know before, that his mom had cancer. And of course, Ruby, the sister, she freaks out. Like, "Why'd you tell him that?" He's like, "Because he needs to know. He needs to step up." And of course, he goes on about the plan that he has, and he mentions that he robbed a liquor store the night before, and he found a lot of a treasure map and a lot of clues that there's gold in the landlord's house, and that he needs to go and take this money from these bad people who want to kick them out and so forth. And then we get the scene of Fool going to his mom, and it kind of goes back into that because he's telling her that he wants to provide for her, and one day he's gonna buy her all these nice things, get her cars for as many feet as she has. And then she comes back and she's like, take care of the kids in the house. And immediately after that, she's like, you're the man of the house now. Which goes back into what I was saying earlier, like, these kids are expected just to grow up and take care of things.
Yeah, and it's something that, when you think of, like, with us, for example, like, if your mom or a family member came and told you at the age of 13, hey, you're the man of a house, like, you need to provide, like, we're not thinking that. At that time, we was in school playing Modern Warfare 2. Like, we're not thinking about providing for the family. So it's is very, very telling of the environment that Fool and his family are growing up in, and something that is very common, not just in movies, not even just in this time when the movie released in 1991, but for real, even people going around today that grow up in that type of environment, that there really is not a childhood, and they're growing up 5, 6, 7 years before your average kid is, and it's really, really crazy to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And it just kind of, I mean, it's going on like right now today, and having, I'm sure these kids are having to grow up as well, being kicked out by landlords with Corona going on and so forth. So, it just makes you think like these kids don't get to have a childhood because they're put in these really bad situations by, of course, the landlords and people who want to, like jobs, who are firing moms and who get sick and so forth. So it just makes you think and makes you feel bad for them. And then, so we go back to the movie, and we cut to the next scene. And this is where we kind of meet Alice and Mama. And Mama comes in. She's kind of making sure Alice has finished her dinner. She's asking if she licked her plate and so forth. And she kind of goes away and she starts taking the plate away, but immediately notices that the fork is missing. She asks Alice, like, where's the fork? What are you doing with the fork? And Alice kind of pretends, like, you can see that she's worried, and she kind of pretends that she's looking around for the fork. And you see this hand come out from the wall and give Alice the fork. So Alice is like, I found the fork, here you go. And right then the dad comes in, and he's talking about how someone robbed the liquor store the night before, and that he's very tense and he needs to let off some steam. And Mama as well says, well, Alice has been a very bad girl. She's been feeling that thing in the walls again. And dad starts getting angry. Mama leaves and he takes off his belt, and it insinuates that he's beating her because it just cuts off after he takes off the belt. We don't get to see that horrific scene, but it just makes you feel bad for Alice because she's helping something in the wall.
Yeah, and it's the hand that ends up popping out. Is very gray. It kind of looks like a zombie hand or a dead hand, to be honest with you. So at this point, we don't know if it's a living person, if this is a creature, and so it kind of leaves you with that suspense going throughout. And I thought that was really well done, that they didn't explain it, but then the fact that the parents acknowledge it when they say that thing. So it's like, okay, so the parents know about this. It was really weird. It kept me guessing until they actually went in depth with the explanation.
Yeah, I think that was very good as far as leaving that mystery, because I mean, just hearing the title, The People Under the Stairs, like what kind of people are they? Are these monsters? Are these like different like zombies, like you kind of mentioned? But it leaves you wondering. Like, his hand looked really ugly. His nails were all dark, but his skin was really pale. It looked pretty disturbing.
Then at the end of the whenever Alice is or when the dad is leaving or whatever, you can hear the wailing as when he is taking off his belt. You hear that wailing in the background, and that plays an important role of a character that gets introduced later on in the film. And then the scene ends up cutting to Fool, who is putting on like a Boy Scout type of outfit. He ends up going up, or he's playing in like the little pond that's near a big house that ultimately is the house where Alice, mommy, and daddy live. And the mom walks outside and is like, what do you want? Like, what are you doing here? And Fool says like, oh, like, ma'am, like, I'm sorry to bother you, but we're selling these cookies. And she's immediately like, no, I don't want any. And he's like, well, ma'am, but, and then she's like, I don't want any. And as she's saying this, she's retreating back to the house, and she's kind of trying to, like, she won't even let Fool on the stoop of the door. And he then comes up with another excuse saying like, well, ma'am, like, would it be okay if I use your bathroom? And she's like, no, and she immediately like slams the door on him. So his plan to essentially get in the house was foolproof, or not foolproof. It failed.
Yeah, and after that, we see Full in a van with Leroy, and we get a new character, Spencer. And you start hearing their plan, and Spencer's asking Fool what he saw, and Fool starts telling him, well, they got the windows locked from the outside with padlocks, and everything's really kind of locked up. And Spencer's like, well, did you try to get in? Did you tell him that you had to go pee and so forth? And Fool's like, yeah, I tried everything. And Spencer just kind of gets irritated. He's like, well, I got to do this myself. And cuts to him, and he's dressed up as a gas company kind of worker. And he goes to the house and he knocks on the door. And of course, mom opens the door and she's like, what do you want? Who are you? And Spencer's like, well, there's a gas leak. We need to get into your home. The heater in there it could be something wrong. If you deny me, we're going to have to call the police because it's very important. And she kind of accepts it like right away, and she lets him in. And then it cuts back to Leroy and Full back in the van.
Yeah, so they're there in the van, and they're Fool's kind of talking about how, like, I can't believe she bought that and all this stuff. And we can assume that part of the reason that obviously he was let in is also because Spencer was white. And that's when he's in there for a while, and we see mom, she's leaving the house, and Leroy spots it, and he's like, she left him all alone in the house. And then he's like, well, we got to go in there. And Fool didn't want to go. He was kind of smart and was like, no, it's not safe. Like, we can't go in there. And Leroy's like, he's like, no, because Spencer's going to be hiding all the good stuff. He's going to try and take my cut, and he's going to take your cut too. And that's kind of when Fool realizes, well, obviously he needs money to help his mom, to help the rent. So they decide to go ahead and break into the house as well.
Yeah, so they pull their van in into the driveway, and Leroy's got this kind of crowbar, and he breaks open the first door that, it's the back door that originally Fool tried to get into. And he breaks open into that one, and they find another kind of door really shut tight, locked up. So Leroy busts open that door, and immediately he's attacked by Big Dog, and he's getting bit on his arm. He's screaming really bad, and Fool kind of springs into action. He calls the attention of the dog, and he does that. I don't know if this ever works for anybody, but he jumps up onto the door frame, hangs onto that, picks up his body, lets the dog go under him, and then immediately slams the door behind him. Of course, the dog just breaks through that door because it was busted open. But Leroy and Fool get into the kitchen and manage to jam that door shut with the broom. And then they kind of start looking around, and Leroy goes upstairs, and he's like, and Fool doesn't really trust that. He's like, no, I don't want to go upstairs. And immediately Leroy's kind of teasing him. He's like, well, you can stay down here, you little girl. I'm going to go upstairs. And then Fool kind of just stays downstairs and start looking around.
Yeah, and before we move forward, I did want to mention, I don't know if you noticed when they first broke into that door, did you notice that there was like the little doll of Spencer?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. There's a doll of Spencer on the ground.
Yeah, there's a little doll of Spencer, which we learn a little bit more about the dolls later on and how they're all kind of related. But from first watch, I thought it was because it looks like a voodoo doll. So I thought maybe there was some type of voodoo going around. Maybe something was happening, and that led to what happened to Spencer, but it doesn't. We'll talk about it later. But it was just kind of interesting, especially the way the camera does it, because it's on the floor, and I think I don't remember if Fool, if he just kicked it or if he had picked it up, but it's very sudden. It's not like long.
Yeah, I can't remember either as well, but I don't think he has it in the next scene when he's looking around. So I want to say he just left it there.
Okay. So yeah, the next scene, he's looking around for quite a while, and he ends up finding what ended up being, it was kind of like the basement, if you will, and he's gonna go down, and then that's when he hears like the wailing and all the sounds, and he gets scared, and he's gonna go back up, but then he says like he basically forces himself to do it. He's like, "Are you gonna do this? Or are you gonna be like a little girl?" Kind of referencing to what Leroy said. So he decides to go back down there, and that's when we spot Spencer. And Spencer's down there in the cellar, the basement, and we can still hear all that groaning and the wailing sounds. And Spencer is like super, super white, like really, really white. And he has like a gold coin in his hand, and Spencer finds it.
Yeah, this is kind of giving truth to that rumor of gold coins being in the house, and them trying to find out all that money as well. But all those noises in the kind of lead him to the body, because they have like flashlights, and there's like people in this cage kind of scurrying back and forth. While Fool is looking around before he sees Spencer, he sees a TV. Here's a TV, and it's pointed into the cage, and he kind of like pushes it aside and looks inside. And then these people inside the cage start flashing the lights into his face and kind of pointing them towards Spencer. Trips over Spencer, sees him dead, and Spencer's hand is like in the cage, and he pulls him out away from the cage, and he sees Spencer's hand like all bitten up, like people were gnawing on, or not people, but anything that it was in the cage. We don't know that they're people, or I guess we do, people under the stairs. But yeah, we see his hand all gnawed up, and Fool is like freaking out, and immediately he's like, I gotta get out of here, there's no way. And right then we get some guy jump onto Fool's back and try to, I don't know if he's trying to strangle him. It looked very weird scene, but he just jumps on his back, and Fool throws him down and tries to run upstairs, and there's these stairs turn into this slide, and he immediately just slides back down. That guy who had jumped on him is like trying to communicate with him in a way, but no words are coming out, and Fool's still scared, so he tries and kind of manages his way back up the slide, gets to the door, but the door is locked shut. Once that slide kind of turned into a slide, the door slams shut, and he gets to the top. This girl opens the door, and it's Alice. She opens the door, and once Fool tries to exit the door, that guy who had attacked him from before grabs him by the feet, kind of trying to pull him back in. But Fool managed to escape and slam the door shut.
Yeah, that was a business picked up really, really quick here, and you start wondering, who are these people that are down here, down in the cellar or under the stairs, if you will, which is also kind of weird because they're like not really under the stairs. They're in like a cage in the basement or cellar, but they're called people under the stairs, which I find funny.
Yeah, I think I think it confirms it like later on in the movie when everything pops off, but I want to say that cage is directly under the stairs, if I'm not mistaken, because that's like the front of the house.
Oh, okay, then that makes sense. Oh yeah, actually, you're right, because we'll talk about that later. But I just thought about that, and I was like, well, people under the stairs sounds pretty hard. Like, like, are you gonna go to a movie if it's like people in the cellar or like people in the basement? People are gonna be like, I'm not watching that. This is like Sharknado stuff. I'm not doing this.
They just put out the movie and nobody's under the stairs at all.
Oh my gosh. We're just to let everybody know, we're doing an announcement now. We have the sequel to this. It's called Jose Under the Stairs.
Yeah. I'll just hide there, but I'm not under the stairs. Really, I'm in the cellar.
And that's where he records a podcast at. Actually, he has all his equipment down there.
Dude, that's actually a good idea. We should make a podcast.
A podcast down in I'm not getting eat up by no people. Hell to the nah. You can go down there. But
no, man, it's the sequel. It's just me.
Oh, okay, good. I'll direct it then, because I ain't going down there. But back to the movie. So yeah, this is where a lot of things are happening at this point. So we we get introduced to Alice, who, well, we already were introduced to her, but now Fool is introduced to Alice. He knows that there's a little girl there. We have this person that's trying to grab him back down the stairs and everything. At this point, when because Leroy ends up being able to escape, and then he ends up going to basically find, he ends up going to find Leroy, who's upstairs, and he looks like he's like playing dead. He's just laying. It's really weird. He's laying down, and his face is in. Because that's the other thing is I want to try and paint in people's heads is while this is a house, it doesn't look like a normal house. It's very similar to if you've seen movies of like a hotel building and people are crawling in like the air ducts and stuff. They have all those multiple entrances, or like think about this. Y'all ever watch Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and when they climbed up through like the air ducts and they had those like gold little things that the kids could slide through? That's really what they're crawling through like for this whole movie. So Leroy is like laying down, and his face is in one of those kind of golden little entrances that lead to the walls or the air ducts, whatever you want to call them. And it's just weird. It looks like he's dead.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. It kind of gives you that, oh, maybe Leroy's dead. We're gonna get our first kind of kill here. Or besides Spencer, we didn't really see that. But yeah, before he goes upstairs though, he hears mom and dad come and pull in the driveway, and he looks out the window, sees them, sees that they notice the van and that they're pretty angry. So he's like, all right, I gotta go get Leroy, and we gotta get out of here. So he goes upstairs, sees Leroy, and his head is in this vent kind of thing. He's laying there dead. And Fool goes up to him, kind of surprises him. Leroy, of course, is alive. Can just give you that scare. And Fool's like, I thought you were dead. What are you doing? And Leroy says he heard something in the vents and that Fool should crawl in there. But Fool is like, no, we gotta go. These people are back. We gotta go.
So then they're trying to run away, and they say like, go out the front door, go out the front door. And when they try and go out the front door, it's like electrocuted. So we kind of get that first sense of that these people's houses are set up kind of very secure. They may have traps and different things like that all set up. And Fool is the one who grabs it and gets electrocuted. So Leroy's kind of wondering like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And while this is all going on, the couple, mom and dad, they realize like, oh, someone's in the house, because they try and go through the door that Fool and Leroy came in. And if you guys remember from earlier, the dog is locked in that, like in the outside part, and they kind of barricaded the door with that broom so they can't get in. So we have dad who's kicking open the door just enough to let the dog, which is a Rottweiler, I think they called it Prince. They like kicked it enough so that way he can get him, and they're yelling, "Get him, Prince! Get him! Kill him! Kill him!" And Prince is running, and so at this point, they grab Leroy picks up Fool, and he tells him like, distract him, like I want you to distract him, and excuse me, and Leroy's hiding behind a couch. Well, when the dog comes, he ends up seeing Fool, but he doesn't attack him, which is like really interesting. He just kind of is looking at him like a normal, like, good boy. And then Leroy pops out his head from the couch, and the dog immediately just goes to attack Leroy.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, but after the second watching, I kind of understood why. And we'll get to that when like we get to the Alice scene coming up shortly. But the dog is attacking Leroy again, biting his arm. And Fool is trying to save Leroy. He pulls him, and they have this kind of chain link where Fool is grabbing Leroy by the hand, and Leroy has the dog on his arm, and Fool kind of leads them to the door, and they get electrocuted, all three of them, and the dogs just kind of gets gets stunned and he's out of it, and he's just lying there. And immediately Leroy gets up. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought, trying to act like the tough guy, but he was screaming for his life like a little girl. So I thought that was pretty interesting, seeing that, he tries to play it off and say that he wasn't really hurt, but immediately after that, they run upstairs to try and hide. And by this time, Dad kicks the door down and gets into the house. They see that Prince is there lying, and Mom goes up and she's like, well, there's people in the house. We know that now. You got to go find them.
Yeah, and so Leroy and Fool ended up running upstairs to hide, and they're hiding behind Leroy runs upstairs and he hides in this kind of like cupboard, and he tells Fool, like, this is my hiding spot, you gotta find your own. And so Leroy just goes behind this like section of the wall, and when he's there, that's when the dad walks up with a shotgun, and he's basically, ready to just shoot whatever is there. And when they put the house on lockdown as well, this is kind of goes back to where we get this sense, obviously they're doing some shady stuff, because they have this whole secure thing where all the doors are automatically locked by just a flick of a switch. All the windows get barred. I mean, everything is just, it's like a prison lockdown basically. And what ends up happening is when Leroy's in that cupboard, we get the hand that was shown earlier that tried to grab Fool. It popped through the wall and like try to grab Leroy. Obviously, when a hand is coming at you from behind, you get scared. So Leroy busts out of that little cupboard, and he busts right into the dad, who's there with a shotgun, and he ends up putting in like 2 to 3 shots into him and kills Leroy. And Leroy, like, as he gets shot, he falls down the stairs, just boom, 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 and he's dead. And as soon as he kills him, he's just dancing around like a buffoon, yelling like, I killed him, I killed him, I got him, I got him. And he's just like so excited that he killed this intruder, and also because he's black and we know that they're racist. So it's just like a whole interesting thing that and like the mom was super excited, and they were like dancing around afterwards together, like as if they're in a prom dance. I mean, they're just so excited that they killed someone.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught this, but right as Leroy gets shot the first time, he screams, "Run, fool!" And then when Mom and Dad are dancing around his dead body at the bottom of the stairs, the mom instantly says, she's like, he called you a fool, ha ha ha, he's the real fool. Like, they don't know there's another kid upstairs, and they think they've kind of solved the problem, which I thought that was kind of a cool little thing, because they don't know that this little kid's name is Fool. So yeah, they're celebrating, dancing around Leroy's dead body. And then Fool goes into Prince's den, which is like kind of in the wall. And this place is very weird. It's got a lot of hidden things in the walls, and there's like the vents and so forth. So Fool goes in and he kind of makes some noise, and Dad goes back upstairs and he's like, I heard a noise. So he goes to Prince's den, but right before he gets the chance to look into that little den, we see Alice kind of pop her head from the other side of where Fool was hiding. He sees her and he immediately just starts going towards her, and kind of gets out of the sight of Dad. And Dad looks in. He's like, well, I'll get you, and starts shooting at the wall. And this really is we'll find out later as well. And there's really kind of a lot of later on of what I will understand it is. But Fool goes out. He goes towards Alice. He makes it way out of this little den or / vent, and he's going door to door trying to find a hiding place. But we see a door open, and he immediately runs to it, and there's Alice waiting there with another little kind of doll.
Yeah, it was real smart. She ended up using that doll to basically bring him to safety. and he Fool begins to talk to her, and we end up finding out, this is where we find out a real big bulk of kind of everything that's been going on, and you as a viewer get a better understanding of everything happening. We find out that Alice does not know, because Fool ends up saying like something about like the neighborhoods out there, and she says, neighborhood? And he's like, yeah, the outside. And she goes, well, I've never been out there. So he's like, you never been outside? And he's like, well, I'm going outside. And as they end up talking, Alice ends up describing about how the parents wanted a boy, and so they started just getting these boys, and whenever they would, either it goes back to that see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, if they basically did something wrong or that they didn't like, they would get rid of them basically by sticking them down in the cellar and then just moving on to the next boy. And so all those people that were down there, people under the stairs, essentially, were all boys that mom and dad did not want. And that's when we end up getting this like more of that wailing. And I think that's when Fool asks like, who's that? And she says, oh, that's Roach. He got out and he's been living within the walls. And so we find out that the wailing the whole time was Roach, the person that she basically fed, and with that, the whole fork scene was Roach, and the person who grabbed him when he was in the cellar at first looking was Roach. The person who grabbed it, Leroy, was Roach. That he's this whole time, he's the person that's been running throughout the walls.
Yeah, that's where I guess for me, this is where that dog, where he kind of sees Fool standing in the living room, the dog stops. To me, I kind of took that as, after watching it, of course, as the dog realizing, oh, maybe this is just another little boy and I'm not supposed to attack him. Maybe this is mom and dad's little boy. Kind of giving him a chance so that mom and dad, before they stick him in the cellar or whatever. And then where the dad goes into Prince's den, the dog's den, where Fool was hiding, and starts shooting. He's like, I'll get you. He's referring to Roach, because Roach is, living in the walls, hiding from dad, and dad's pretty angry that he got out and he's trying to, get him and kill him. So then we get back to where we were in the movie, where Roach is kind of toying with dad. And this is where we see dad in kind of like this leather suit with a bunch of chains, like BDSM kind of stuff, and he's got his whole face covered. You only see his mouth, and he's got the shotgun running around shooting at the ceiling while Roach is toying with them. So I thought that, I don't know why they chose that specific costume. I thought that was a pretty interesting kind of thing there, but it makes you just kind of realize that these people are more demented or really messed up in the head than we thought.
Yeah, there's a part later on, I'm pretty sure you may have catched it, but I'll bring it up later, and it'll support this kind of reasoning. Is I think the reason they put him in this like BDSM kind of outfit, I was gonna say uniform, outfit, if you will, is pretty much because the dad, him going around and potentially him committing this harm and killing and all this stuff, it's like it essentially turns him on. It's like a sexual kind of like fantasy, if you will, to him. And you kind of get that a little bit when he ends up killing Leroy. They're dancing around, he's so happy, saying I killed him and all this stuff. Like, to him it's all fun, it's euphoric feeling. So after this, we end up getting to where I want to say that's after he's shooting the walls and stuff. That's when the mom notices that the police have arrived, and she tells dad, get in your suit, like hurry up, the police are here. So he's like trying to hurry up and change and everything. And we find out that the police are there because the van that is outside was related to the robbery that had occurred at that corner store, and the officers are saying like, oh yeah, this is why we're here. We want to take our, do you know anything about this? And the mom ends up saying, well, no, there was like a white man and a black man. They were here, but they got out of the vehicle and left. Like, we don't know anything. I already checked under the beds and everything. They're not in the house. Well, she says that they're not in the house, and the police say, well, we just want to be safe. Like, we want to look inside. That's when she says, I already checked under the beds. No one's in there. And the police end up just being like, okay, well, you be careful now. There's a lot of robberies going around. And the mom and dad end up playing it off very well and sending the police off. And so the police leave. But instead of mom and dad just going back inside, they end up saying like, oh, well, because they mentioned something about the robber, and the mom and dad say like, oh, well, he'll like rot in hell, or like he'll burn in hell or whatever, because they know that they killed him. They killed Leroy. But when they look at the van, that's when they spot the uniform, and they see a tiny uniform, which was like very well done, I feel like. And that's when they say, there's another one, and he's inside the house.
Yeah, and they're referring to Fool, who had shown up earlier in the movie, trying to get into the house, like pretending to sell cookies or use the restroom to get in the house. And Ma instantly recognizes that uniform, and she knows that, oh, he's in the house. And what happens? Fool's, and then it cuts back into the house. Fool's trying to escape, but Prince is chasing after him, the dog. And they're going through, the little vents and so forth. And there's one part where Fool had gotten out of one of the vents, and he's trying to kick the door shut on Prince's head, but Prince is just too strong for him. So Fool starts running. He goes back into that restroom where he was hiding with Alice. Alice is gone at this point. And this part is kind of, it's not necessarily funny because it's abuse to an animal, but he just kind of punches the dog in the nose. The dog starts crying. He's able to lock the door. And Prince is outside the door barking up a storm. Fool doesn't know what to do. He's freaking out. And then you hear Dad's voice kind of coming towards Prince. He's like, what is it? Who's there? And then you get these shotgun blasts through the door, and you see Dad looking kind of like that Shining scene where you see Johnny look through the door. He looks in. He's like, who's in there? And there's Fool waiting for him, and he kind of smashes him over the head. What is it, like a brick or something?
Yeah, it's like it looks like a big piece of like, not a cinder block, but it looks like, and it's larger than a brick too. It's like a piece of like the wall or something, like a huge piece of tile kind of thing, but yeah, it was thicker than tile.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, just, I don't know where he found that, but he was able to break it over Dad's head, and Dad is stunned. He just kind of goes back, and we see Fool kind of pick up the doll that Alice was holding of, was it Spencer? No, it was actually of him. She had a doll of him. And it looks like he's wearing the same clothes as his doll. He holds his doll. He's like, I'll beat you if you get in here. And then Dad kind of points a shotgun, but we see Roach appear through this kind of secret door, and it opens up outwards. Roach grabs Fool, and he just kind of like sucks him into the wall. And Dad doesn't know how to react. He's like freaking out, like, oh, I just saw this happen.
Yeah, and it's we end up seeing where like, it's also very funny because when Roach grabs him, we can kind of hear Roach like laughing. Like, it's no longer like a wail. It's kind of like this weird laugh, and the dad comes in, and the dad is so trigger happy. Like, I feel like he never runs out of ammo either. He's just like shooting at the wall aimlessly, like making holes and stuff, like ruining his house. And he's like yelling like, I'm gonna get you. And he ends up sending he ends up sending he ends up like shotgun blasting where that secret door was, and then he tells like the dog to like get him, to sick him, and he says like kill, like he basically puts it in his mind, and he like jumps through that little thing, and we can see we can see Roach. Sorry, we can see Roach, and he's like there with Fool, and Fool's like trying to talk to him, and Roach is like, he's not able to speak words. He's just doing his like kind of thing, and he's like smiling and like laughing, and while he's doing all this, and there's like some little like secret kind of thing that they do where basically the dog gets like sent back down with the doll, because they throw the doll that looks like Fool at the dog, and he basically goes and gets sent down like another trap door that falls all the way down, that leads to the kitchen. And at this point the dad and the mom are down there in the kitchen, and that's when like it opens up through a cabinet. Like, it's so crazy how everything leads, but it opens up into a cabinet that's like under the sink, and it just like the dog flies through, and it's just all happy with its like little doll in its mouth. But one of the things that is kind of important before Jose talks is the dad, when the mom asks like, oh, what happened? Like, where's I think she says like, where's Prince or whatever. He says the dog will get to them before they get to Alice. And the other thing is going back when the police officers at first left and they said someone's in the house, they said, we need to get to him before he gets to Alice. And it's kind of a recurring theme in this movie where the mom and dad, every single person that they come in contact with, they keep thinking that like these people under the stairs or Fool, they're trying to get to Alice.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that as well. Maybe they're just kind of keeping her away from what they believe is harm, but I think they're really just trying to avoid her like getting pregnant or something. But after the dog goes into the kitchen, the mom sees the dog with the doll, and she's like, oh, they've already got into Alice. So then it cuts over to Fool and Roach. They go into Alice's room. Roach, this is where Fool kind of starts thanking Roach, like, oh, thank you, but isn't he kind of weird? Like, why doesn't he talk? And Alice explains to him that Roach kind of spoke against the dad and mom, and he got his tongue chopped off, and we see Roach smile and stick out his tongue, and he's like, it's chopped off. And it goes back into that see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, and it was because Roach had spoken evil against mom and dad, so he was punished for it. And Fool sees the dolls on the bed, and he sees one that was made for Leroy. And he asks Alice, like, well, why do you make these? Like, how did you make this so fast? And she's like, well, it's to capture all the souls of the dead, or the people that die here, just to kind of give them a place to go when they die.
Yeah, and that was very interesting, because of course since she had made one for Fool, you can kind of assume that because she went on ahead and made these, even though before Fool had died, because he doesn't die, but because it's expected that anyone that comes into this house that is, I guess if you want to say, an intruder or whatever, they all die. Every single one has. And so it's kind of very telling for the environment that this house is. Obviously, so far in the film, we get a sense of what it is, but also it's crazy. She does make them like crazy fast, because it's not like they're in the house that long.
Yeah, it gives you that sense, like people are getting killed almost as soon as they come into the house. She had these already met up, these three guys. But as soon as she finishes kind of explaining why, Dad bursts in. He manages to kind of pop a couple shots at Roach, who was trying to escape through that hole in the wall where he had kind of stuck his hand out for the fork earlier. and you see him just kind of stop there, and he's like, so you can assume that he got shot. And then Ma is grabbing at Alice. She's like, you messed up, you're out of line. Dad grabs Fool, and then Dad's taking Fool downstairs, and he kind of throws him down the stairs, and Fool kind of tumbles and he gets knocked out. And then he goes and grabs Leroy and just kind of sends him down that slide that where the stairs had turned into the slide, so he sends him down that slide. And then what happens here? Ma grabs Alice and she's like, "You're gonna clean up all this mess." She takes him to where Leroy had fallen down the stairs, and there's a pool of blood, and Alice is wearing this white dress, and you see it start getting stained with this blood. And Ma is talking, and one thing that kind of stood out right here is when she's done talking, she kind of ends it with, "You kids will be the death of me," kind of hinting at what's coming towards her.
Yeah, that was really interesting because like that's a common thing that parents say all the time, right? Whenever you and your siblings are being little badasses and stuff, right? Like your mom or whatever says it, and it's kind of funny because it's just thrown in there like a normal thing, but it foreshadows what's to come. But we get where she's, and I think this is where Alice plays a part very well. You could tell like her character, she just looks so frightened and so scared, and like she's afraid of Mom and Dad, and she's scrubbing the blood, and the scenes are going back and forth between Alice scrubbing the blood or the things that are going on with Alice and the mom, and then the things that are going on with the dad and Fool. And we can see where essentially the dad is like prepping Leroy, and he kind of like cuts off part of his like dead body, and then throws it into the into that cellar where the people are under the stairs, and they immediately like go towards it because it's not like they're getting 3 meals a day and are fed or anything, so they're eating human flesh, which is crazy. And it makes you wonder how long they've been down there and all that kind of stuff. And then this one was like a really, really tough scene to watch. The not the mom, excuse me, the mom ends up dragging Alice up to the bathroom, and she's telling her like I ask you to do one thing. I ask you to scrub, and you're gonna get your white dress clean. And this water is, you could tell, is scalding hot. There's steam coming from it, and she's telling her like, get in the bath right now. And Alice is saying like, no, no, no. And she puts her in like that scalding hot water, and you could just hear Alice like screaming in pain. It's a pretty tough scene to watch.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Alice, the actress who played her, really sold that. It really looked like she was in pain. But after that scene, after Dad's finished with Leroy, he sends him down like this well, secret compartment, and the floor kind of opens up. These panels open up sideways, and he sends him down there and closes it back up. And then he takes Fool and he kind of puts him in the cage with these people, and these people are surrounding Fool. And then we see that well kind of open up again, and we hear like this kind of voice sound where it sounds like a ghost, and the people who are surrounding Fool in this cage, they kind of look at the cage, outside the cage, to see what's going on. And we see this Leroy's body kind of emerge from the well, and it's kind of scaring them, so the people disperse. This is where we get a really good first look at the people as well. They're very ugly looking, very pale. They haven't seen sunlight, and it's very interesting. It's they look very deformed. They hadn't eaten. They're very skinny, and it's very jarring to see them But anyways, it goes back to Leroy, and these people have dispersed, and you see Roach put down Leroy's body, and he goes to the cage and he lets out Fool, and they immediately go to this kind of, I guess, furnace, you can say. And at this point, Dad is already kind of going back downstairs, and he sends down Prince to make sure that things are going okay, that Fool is getting eaten by these people. And you see Fool and Roach make it into this furnace just in time.
Yeah, and as soon as Fool ends up, or he escapes with Roach, he's telling him like, "Oh, thank you," but then he looks and notices that Roach had been shot by the shotgun, and he's like, "Oh, we need to take you to a hospital. We need to take you to a hospital." And Roach is basically gives him kind of, it was like I believe like a note or something to essentially say to save Alice, and it has a little gold coin with it. So Fool knows what he has to do, and he begins to escape through the walls, and he ends up going to Alice. And when he's there with Alice, he's basically saying like, "Hey, we got to get out of here, or whatever." And the dad busts through the wall. And this is like a super funny part of the movie, because Fool, excuse me, just straight up runs and like punches the dad right in the nuts. And the dad like goes down, and he's telling him like, "Hey, we got to escape through the walls." And like Allison's very hesitant, obviously, because she's scared. She's never done nothing like that. So the dad gets up pretty quickly, recovering from his nut buster shot, and then he smacks like a lamp over the dad's head, and both him and Alice end up escaping through the walls.
Yeah, so they get back into the walls, and this is all connected to the furnace. So the dad kind of realizes, he goes down into the furnace, he sees Roach dead in there, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna burn in hell," and he sets him on fire. So the heat from the furnace is making where Fool and Alice are, is making it very hot, very uncomfortable. He's trying to flush them out, and they kind of escape from these vent type thing into, I guess, another part of the walls where you don't feel that heat. And they get out, and Dad is looking for them. He's trying to listen to any sounds in the wall, and Fool stops. He's like, "I gotta sneeze." So he's there trying to stop it, while Alice is like waving her hands in his face, trying to get him to stop. And you get that kind of thing where he stops for a moment, but then he sneezes right then, and that's where Dad, he finds him, and he starts shooting into the walls, and they're walking towards another part. And this is how long the dad had been, I guess, chasing after Roach, is he had this trap set up, and where Fool like kind of triggered it, and this contraption with spikes just kind of goes through the wall. Like if you were to be in that wall at that moment, you would have all these spikes going through you. You'd be dead completely. And it just makes me think like how crazy that dad must have gone, trying to look for this Roach character.
Yeah, it's really wild. And like you said, how long he had been looking for Roach. And it's because, obviously these contraptions aren't something that, I don't think that he could just be, you're not going down to Home Depot and buying that. So it's like, he had to have made this contraption and set that up. And it's also goes, good credit to Roach, where he's, however long, he knew all the ins and outs, all the little cupboards and hidden spots within the walls of this house. And he was able to go through all that without triggering that, impalement. So it's really crazy, and it makes you think about like, well, what else is, what other secret traps are lying within this house?
Yeah, there's so much going on in this house. It's so crazy. And then when that is done, we see the dad. He starts following the kids in the wall, and he's listening out for them as best as he can. And then he starts because he finds where where they are, and he starts like poking holes, and he's just poking holes through. Oh, by this time, I'm sorry, before this he had sent Prince through the vents to chase the kids, and Fool had kind of stood there. He's like, I'm gonna stand my ground, I'm gonna fight this dog. And this is where Dad kind of realizes where they are, because there's Fool, making noise against the walls fighting this dog. And Dad finds him. He starts like spearing with this sword on his gun through the wall, trying to get and kill Fool or Alice, either or. And Fool kind of realizes that this sword is coming through, so he puts the dog against the wall where the spear is coming through. And Dad, you could see, had impaled Prince, but he hadn't known that yet. He thinks he had gotten Fool, and Fool kind of plays into that. He's like, oh, you got me, kind of thing, kind of throw him in a different directions, thinking that he had killed him.
Yeah, it's really, really well done by Fool. And when it happens, we of course know that the dog, Prince, ended up getting stabbed. But immediately and the camera work was so well done, the dad pulls out his, I'm gonna just call it, you know what it looked like? It looked like the retro Lancer from Gears of War.
Dude, that's what I was thinking too.
That's where Epic Games got their idea from. So our man Dad, he pulls out his retro Lancer out of the wall, and then you just see the blood like dripping from it. It was really, really well done. And he's like dancing around like all happy and stuff, and he goes to the hallway and he's like, I killed him, I got him. And the mom goes like, prove it. So he goes to the room, and he's like moving away the brick and all the wood and stuff from the wall. And that's when the dog bites with its last, I guess, like life. It just like bites, and they're like, huh. And then she's like, you killed Prince. And that's when they find out that they killed the dog, not the little boy.
Yeah, that was I guess pretty funny, or the way she said that, you killed Prince. It's an interesting scene, seeing that. But anyways, Fool and Alice, they're at the end of the hallway, and Fool looks up and he sees light above him, so they climb up and they try to escape. And they end up in the attic, I believe, where it's an attic type setting. And Fool's looking around, he sees an open window in this attic, and Fool is trying to get Alice to jump out with him. He's trying to get to escape, and Alice is rejecting it. She's like, no, I can't leave, I'm not allowed outside. She's very scared, very hesitant. So Fool kind of goes out the window. He's trying to get it, but Dad goes into the attic. He finds them, and immediately he just, tries to start shooting at him. Fool is out on the roof trying to escape. He looks down, there's really nowhere to jump. So Dad makes it to the window, and he has a clear shot at Fool, but Alice immediately pushes him off and steers him, and the gunshot goes elsewhere. And Fool had gotten so scared by being shot, he had jumped anyways, and he lands into this pool or pond that was kind of like in their garden. It was in there, and that kind of leads into something else later as well.
Yeah, and that was that same pool that he was kind of messing with, or the little pond, when he first went to the house pretending to be like a Boy Scout. And so he jumps in that pond, he's then swims out, but the dad runs downstairs with his gun, and he goes outside, and he sees Fool like running away, jumping over the fence, and he starts to shoot. And the mom says, what did I ever tell you? She was like, I told you, you don't shoot your gun outside. And he's like, looks very like like as if like he wants to still go after him and try and kill him, but then he succumbs to Mom, and he walks back, and Mom like hits him and over the head, and we kind of get this, I guess that's where we, I guess, learn this vibe of where she's like the head honcho. She tells him what to do, and everything is it's really weird. But the next scene is a Fool, and he's back with he's sitting at a table with the sister and this man who ends up being Fool's grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, and he has a bunch of gold coins with him, and the older man says, "Yeah, you've got enough here to pay your rent through 2000." And then he's like, and oh, because this movie's in 1991, by the way, people. And then he says, and or Fool goes like, and to pay for mom's surgery, and he's like, and to take care of your mother. So he's like, tomorrow we're gonna go to a really good coin, salesman, whatever you want to call him, a gold salesman, and we're gonna get this money or whatever. And then he ends up telling him like, hey, don't go back there, like these landlords, they're not good people. And he starts to go a little in depth, and we learn more about these people than what Leroy had told us earlier, and that these weren't like a husband and wife, they were brother and sister. Each generation of the family got worse and worse. They got more money hungry. And originally, the place was just like a funeral home. And then once they got into real estate and money got involved, they became super money hungry. And that's when they started basically buying up all the places in the ghetto and getting all the black people out.
Yeah, and this it just kind of disgusts me that they're brother and sister playing this mommy and daddy type role. But yeah, this had been going on for generations, a long line of incest. So then it cuts to Fool, and he calls the police in this his phone booth, and he reports that there's child abuse going on over where the mom and dad house. So the police, it cuts back to that house. The police are inside. There's a bunch of them. They're all investigating. Mom is, trying to get on their good side. She's got them coffee and so forth, playing a pretty good host. And one of the I guess chief, I don't know what you call it, but one of the head policemen, he starts talking to dad, and dad's trying to steer him away as well. But another lower policeman, he tells that head one, he's like, oh, you got to come take a look at this. They go into Alice's room, and he starts questioning mom and dad. He's like, I thought you don't have kids, so why do you have this? And mom starts saying that, oh, they had a girl named Alice once and she had run away, but we keep the room to kind of keep memory of her in case she ever comes back. And immediately the cops like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. We're gonna go ahead and get out of your hair. That's very tragic, and we won't bother you again.
Yeah, and it's very interesting too, because like we see a part where like the dad has some of his weird like BDSM chains and stuff he's trying to hide, and he opens up this panel of the wall and puts them in there like when the cops move or like walking down a different direction and stuff. And it's just so crazy of all the weird hiding spots and everything that the police didn't do, I guess, like a thorough enough check to find something, you know what I mean? But as soon as the police leave and the mom and dad, because they kind of mention, they say, oh, do we need to get Alice? And they said, no, we'll leave her hanging there. She can hang there through the night. And as soon as they leave and they turn off the lights or whatever, we see Fool, who pops in through a window, I guess kind of expecting that the cops weren't going to find anything, so he's there to save Alice.
Yeah, so he gets into the window and he's making sure that everything is clear. He grabs one of those fire pokers that you see in the fireplace. I don't know what you call them. Do you know what like the correct term for it is?
I don't. Well, it's not a pitchfork, but it's not a branding iron either, but it's like a mix between the two.
Yeah, one of those things for fireplaces. And so he grabs that, he goes upstairs, and in the background you hear mom and dad kind of saying their prayers before they go to bed. Fool gets to the door of the room, and he looks in, and there's this tape recorder of them saying their prayers and so forth, and he's very confused. He stands there stunned, and then Dad bursts in through the other side of the hallway, and he starts attacking Fool, and he grabs Fool, kind of picks him up, but Fool gets his thumbs and pokes him into Dad's eyes, so Dad's very stunned. He can't see anything, and then Mom comes out and she tries to help, but she trips over Dad, and then Fool grabs that little poker thing and he bashes it over Dad, and it kind of breaks, but part of it sticks into Dad in the back.
Yeah, and Fool ends up running away. He ends up hitting one of the switches for downstairs because he finds that box that controls basically all the rooms that are on lockdown, and he opens up the downstairs basement area. And when he runs away, the dad goes downstairs looking for him. He doesn't spot Fool at all. So then the mom's like, "Did he get away?" And he comes back upstairs and he's like, "He got away. I lost him." And then I think they mentioned the like, he'll tell or something like that, going back to that like speak no evil. And that's when it cuts to Alice, who is in the basement, and she's hanging, which goes back to what they said, she could hang there all night. She's got her hands strapped up, she's attached to like the chimney, and we see the again, the camera works great. You see Allison on the right side of your TV screen, and the dad's coming in through the door in the back. And the dad's, pay attention to this, I don't know if you caught this. So the dad comes in, and Alice can hear like the dad coming in, and that's when she says like, "Daddy, will you please let me down?" And the dad doesn't say anything. He grabs his private area and starts like rubbing it, and he moans. And the mom says, like, bursts through the door and says, "Daddy, put me to bed." And then he's like, and she's like, "Put me to bed right now." And then he leaves. But did you catch that? Like, what a freaking weirdo.
Yeah, he's, like you said earlier, he gets off on being dressed up and killing people, and I guess him hearing like, "Oh, Daddy, can you let me," that type of thing from his fake daughter, or it's disturbing, it's very disturbing. And then after that scene, by the way, I wanted to correct you, they're actually up in the attic instead of the basement.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So Fool is hiding in the chimney. He's pushing the bricks away, and once Dad and stuff leaves, he comes back and kind of frees Alice up, and they go into they try to go into the chimney, but they can't. So Fool goes up through the roof. He comes in through that window that was open, and they're trying to look for kind of a way down, but they can't. And they find like bomb traps and stuff that Dad had set up and stuff to kind of avoid people escaping again. So they have no other way out but to go outside onto the roof and try to go down the chimney. But while they're at the chimney, it cuts to Dad and Mom inside their room, and they have a fireplace in their room, and they see like this dust falling from the chimney, and they immediately start like, "Oh, they're up in the roof." So Dad kind of looks, puts his head into the fireplace, and he looks through, and he starts popping shots off, very trigger happy, like you had mentioned earlier. And of course, the kids aren't getting hurt. They're way up on top, and they're keeping their heads away from looking down. But who is it? Fool tells Alice to give him a brick, and he throws a brick down and immediately goes and knocks Dad, and he's very hurt. He's stunned, and he gets out from that fireplace, and Ma goes in next.
Yeah, Ma goes in next, and because the kids were coming down, like as soon as they hit him with the brick, they were making their way down. I guess they weren't expecting that Ma was gonna be right there. And when they noticed Mom, they were like, Fool goes like, wait, 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 and then the Ma was there, and she was kind of like surprised to see both of them coming down, and then they just shot down and basically landed on Mom, but at the height they were at, it's not like it really did much damage. So Ma is from, because they're kind of sitting on top of Ma, but her head is like poked out enough, so she's trying to grab at Fool's throat, and that's when Fool ends up putting his fingers in her nose and just pushing up. And while it seems funny, like that really does hurt, like really, really bad. And he's like putting all this pressure right there on her like sinus, and she's like screaming, and they end up getting away, um and running, and they decide to split up because they're because what ends up happening is they said like, oh, let's go, let's jump. And um Alice says, well, we can't, because when you did last time, Daddy drained the water out and put broken glass down there, so we can't go that way. So he's like, okay, well, you go out the front door, like you go out the front door then. I got something to take care of. I'm gonna go free those kids.
Yeah, and another thing, a critical thing, was when Ma was looking, and she had grabbed the shotgun at that point, and when the kids fell on top of her, she had dropped it, and it fell all the way into the basement. So this is where the kids are still going back down. They reach the living room. Fool tells Alice to go off and find her way out, and he goes into the basement, of course, saying, I got stuff to do. I gotta free these people." And so Alice is making her way through the house, and Mom stops her. She goes downstairs. She stops her, and she's like, "You betrayed me, or before that, she's saying like, we can't let that bad kid corrupt you. We gotta save us, and we can't let him corrupt us." And immediately Alice kicks her, and she's like, I don't trust you. So she runs off, and then Dad comes downstairs, and Mom is like, they've corrupted my Alice. And then she kind of gives Dad permission, and says they can both go to hell, and Dad takes that as, oh, I'm gonna kill them both.
Yeah, and so then the next part is that it's end up cutting to they end up going down to the cellar, and well, I should say the dad ends up going down to the cellar, and when he goes down there, that's when Fool is waiting there, and he's got the shotgun, and he basically tells the dad to put his hands up, and that, to put down his weapon and everything, like, and the dad puts his hands up, and he acts like he's gonna abide by Fool's commands, but he hits this that switch on the side of the wall that ends up turning the stairs to a slide. So Fool slides down and drops the shotgun, and that's when we hear there's a knock on the door.
Yeah, so there's a knock on the door, and Mom goes over, and she answers it. She has a gun as well, and she hides it. And it's actually Ruby, the sister of Fool, and she's there to protest, the rent charges, saying that they just keep going through the roof, and that it's not fair, and they can't be doing that. And Mom just kind of ignores it and closes the door, and so then it cuts back down to Dad there at the bottom, and he grabs the shotgun ready to shoot Fool, and all the people in I guess in that cage under the stairs, they kind of blind Dad with like the flashlights that they had from earlier, and he just starts popping off shotgun shots again, but he loses Fool, and Fool runs off.
Yeah, Fool ends up running off, and once he kind of composes himself again, we get where at this point, this is where essentially what ends up happening is he composes himself, and he shows the light, or the light is now kind of focused on. We can see where Fool is being held by the one of the people from the cellar under the stairs, and he's following him with the light and like the shotgun, and it's moving over and over and over, and then that's when he shoots. But when he shoots, they like drop Fool, and so it shoots the lock that's on it shoots the lock that's on the actual thing, the cage that has the people. And so then they drag Fool like right inside.
So while all this is going on, mom is upstairs and she hears police knocking on the door. They're yelling outside. They're like, "It's the police. You got to open up. We're going to burst down the door if you don't open up." But she opens the door and it's just Ruby and the grandpa there. And the grandpa says, like, "You're going to listen to us. This isn't right." And they start bringing up the rent issues again, saying that how what they're doing isn't fair. They own all the property around, and they're just jacking up the rent to kick out all these people and make them homeless. And Ma's like, "I've had enough." She reveals the gun that she was hiding from behind her back, and she's like, and then she's like, "What are y'all gonna do?" And then we see this group of people start to form behind Ruby and the grandpa, and it's really the whole neighborhood. And they're like, "Yeah, we caught you. We see what you're doing. You're in trouble now." And then what happens from there, Deonte?
That is when we get, which is so crazy because she just comes out of nowhere, but we get Alice, who jumps from like the floor above right on top of mom, and she knocks her out and just slams her head on the floor like a couple times. And you can hear the neighborhood in the background because they see Alice, who is, obviously she's got some bruises and she just looks so kind of distraught. So they say like, "What are they doing to that poor girl? What are they doing?" and stuff like that. And so they come inside, and that's when we get where they lead her. Essentially they the sister and the grandpa come in, and Alice, I guess, kind of fills them in on like what's going on and where Fool is at. So the sister and Alice head over to the basement.
Yeah, so they head over to the basement, and at this point, Dad, after he had shot the lock on the door, he had given up on trying to find Fool because the people had taken him. So I guess he's thinking that, oh, maybe they're gonna eat Fool. But so he starts going upstairs, and we see the grandpa open up the basement, and you see Ruby there and Alice as well. And so Dad starts rushing upstairs, like, well, who are these people? He doesn't recognize them. He doesn't know what's going on upstairs because he was so busy with downstairs. But the grandpa and Ruby, they slam the door shut on Dad, and he starts falling down the stairs. And then the people, they start showing Fool around, and one of them, he shows Fool where the safe is. There's a safe inside that cage where they were, and he's like, it's locked up, but there's a burglar alarm. You can't get in without everything sounding off. Or is it a burglar alarm, or is it the bomb?
It's a no. It's the first thing is a burglar alarm, because the other guy that's there, and also well, I guess I'll mention it a little bit later, but because one of the things Fool says is he goes, "Oh, I know a thing or two about these," or something along those lines, about essentially he could get in no problem.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and he had mentioned something like, I had learned this, and it's just kind of a reference to Leroy and how he had tried to teach Fool all these bad things, breaking in and so forth. So yeah, Fool, he ends up dismantling the burglar alarm by I guess taking apart the wires and so forth. So he had done that, and then he gets into the safe, and then it cuts to Mom upstairs, right?
Yeah, or because it cuts to where they, or actually what ends up happening is that I want to say at this point the because the sister, remember with the part where the sister and Alice are there and they look over and they say mom's gone, and yeah, they're like mom's gone. So then they go towards the front door and the sister like walks outside or whatever, because she's like, did y'all see, she goes like, did y'all see her walk out here? And then all the doors close, and and the sister thinks that Alice is the one that closed it, because she's saying like, we're just trying to help you, we're just trying to help you. And it turns out that it was mom. And Alice ends up going to the kitchen where she spots mom, and she says like, I see you. And Alice says, I see you. And the mom turns around and she's like, what does she says? She says something like, I see you too, or like, what she says, some like kind of quote, and then she turns around with a knife.
I honestly can't remember that quote, but yeah, she turns around with the knife and she starts chasing Alice, and she ends up pinning her up against the stairs, and she's about to kill her, but one of the people from underneath, he breaks through the stairs, and this is a pretty cool scene because like you just see him emerge, kind of like a zombie type thing. You see him emerge, and he ends up saving Alice, and he ends up grabbing the knife. And mom is scared, and she starts running around, and all these people just start emerging from the walls. It's a pretty great scene. It kind of reminds me of just a zombie scene. Like they're emerging through the walls, they're chasing mom, and she's going from room to room, and she's being cut off at each point. And it's a pretty cool scene to me.
Yeah, it's really nice, and we end up getting where they kind of corner her, and as they're cornering her, Alice stabs mom, and she says something like about like, you stabbed your mother, and she says like, you're not my mother, you never were. And that's when the mom, she looks all distraught, she's looking around, and she pulls out that knife, as all the other kids that look like the zombies, they're all cornering her, and she pulls out the knife, and you're wondering like, what is she gonna do, what is she gonna do? I thought she was actually gonna kill herself, because I figured maybe for her, being that the entire movie she's had this sense of power over, her quote unquote husband and like everyone else, I thought maybe she was going to treat it like, you're not going to take me out, like I'm going to take myself out. But she then like lunges to try and stab Alice, but all the children basically just jump on top of her and kill her and bite her all up.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna do the exact same thing. The way she was holding the knife and the look in her eyes, she's like, I have the power, I'm gonna go out my own way. But she ends up lunging and ends up getting killed by the people
And
under the stairs.
I wanted to mention at this part, which I think is great by them doing this movie and whoever did all the makeup and everything, is a very small detail, something that most people may not pick up, is every single one of the kids under the stairs all had long hair. Now, why is that important? Because they were under there for a long period of time. They're not getting, looked after. It's not like they're getting haircuts every 2 weeks. So if those kids had short hair, it would not have made sense. They all had long hair.
Yeah, definitely. And since you mentioned kind of like the makeup and all those little details, I wanted to mention this earlier, but I had completely skipped over it in my notes. But dad and mom at the beginning of this film, they look very innocent. They look like normal people, very healthy. Their skin kind of was the normal color. But here at the end of the film, mom looks so evil. Like her face, it looks very very dry, very pale. Her skin kind of looks like it doesn't have any, or not her fin, like her cheeks don't look like they don't have any meat anymore, like she had been starving herself. She looks very evil at this point. So I guess that progression from the beginning of the film to now really just kind of goes with how the more evil that they are, the more that we learn throughout the movie, they look the part at the end of the film.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really well done. I really liked the way that they did everything, and even going down to for the children, all of their clothes were very like mangled and raggedy, and they all had like dust and dirt and debris, and from the way that their faces looked, they looked, pale, like they had been starving. I mean, the only food that they got were human flesh, and that's all they had been eating. So obviously you're, eating human, your normal skin that you have isn't going to look the way it is. It's going to look different. I mean, everything was just done like very, very well, in my opinion. But at that point, that's that's the death of mom, and we get where they end up tossing mom's dead body down the actual stairs, and when they or down into the cellar basement, and when they do that, it lands like right at the dad's foot, and so he's ready to basically kill whoever at this point. He's like totally pissed.
Yeah, so he's back up and he has the shotgun as well, and he goes because he hears like the coin, kind of this coin noise like falling, and he goes into that I get what do you call it, the safe, sorry, he goes into the safe where Fool had broken into earlier, and Fool had seen earlier, I guess earlier in the movie, he had seen there was a bunch of riches everywhere, and there was like mounds of dynamite within that safe as well. So right now dad enters and he hears these coins. He kind of turns this corner, and it seems like Fool is kind of counting the money, and he starts babbling on. Dad starts babbling that classic villain kind of speech. He's like, yeah, I bet you're counting that money. I used to do that all the time too. And then he just starts popping shots off at what he thinks is Fool. But then he goes and tries to check it out, and this little part, I don't know how Fool had come up with this idea, but he sticks coins in these candles, like in the middle of the candle. So as the candle burns, once it burns to a certain point, the coins start falling, and it kind of gives that sense that he was like counting the coins. This is probably the greatest little thing that I had ever seen. I had never seen that idea or ever heard of it, and it definitely Fool's dad. So then Fool appears behind dad, and you can take it from here, Deonte.
Yeah, so Fool, he appears, and he's got two wires that are cut, and he is telling dad, you put down your shotgun right now, or I'm gonna blow up this place. And he's like, it's great because we get the first kind of sense of Fool getting like this true empowerment, because he's cursing and all this other stuff at him. He's telling him all this kind of stuff, and the dad just doesn't seem like he's buying it, and he's says like, Fool tells him, yeah, not a real smart place to put your dynamite, huh? And the camera kind of pans over to just where you see the candles and all this money and gold coins, but there's bombs and boxes of dynamite just laying there, and the dad doesn't do it. And I think Fool, he says like, I'm getting real tired of you. He's like, I'll blow this F word up or whatever. And then that's when the dad doesn't put it down, and Fool does it. He puts the wires together and then jumps behind the wall so he doesn't get hurt, and blows up the whole place. And the way the camera does it is you get the explosion inside, and you can see all the smoke and stuff going out of the windows. It pans to all the the black community outside, where they were still standing outside the house, and they're like running because they just see like this huge explosion. But then money is falling from the sky essentially, which I just find so funny, because like, yeah, it's an explosion. I know explosions are crazy, but how does the money go from like underneath in this basement to now all of a sudden it's like raining money?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. I guess that's one of the more unrealistic parts of this movie. But yeah, while the money is flying outside, it cuts back into inside, and you see dad fall into that underground well type thing, and there's like this trough of water underneath the house. So he falls in there, and Alice goes down. She finds Fool lying there, and she makes sure that he's okay. And of course, he's okay. He's, the hero of the movie. And so it cuts back to outside, money flying. Then you see the people that were under the stairs. They start emerging outside, and you see them get excited because they finally get to experience what the outside world is like. And then they just start running off. They don't even care about the money. They just start going into different places. The neighborhood is, going crazy for this money falling out of the sky. They're grabbing at it. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, so very, very happy ending. Obviously, of course, we can assume what would happen next if the film continued, right? People in the neighborhood would get a little bit of coin in their bag. We would know that, Fool's family would pay rent, and that the mom would get the help she needs for her cancer. But all around, just a very, very happy ending. And I feel like a very solid one. A very, very solid one.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I really, the actors for mom and dad really just sold that hatred that I have for them. They were evil people. They were ugly, and of course racist. They were landlords. Things that are going on in the world today definitely were portrayed in their characters. So I just hated them, and the happy ending was definitely a good part about it. I really enjoyed the film altogether, and there were a lot of good moments, a lot of good acting, like I had mentioned even before this. But with that being said, Deonte, how many pints of blood are you giving this movie, sir?
Man, it's a really difficult question. Because first I want to say I loved this movie. I did not like this movie. I loved this movie. I thought the story was really well done. I thought the acting was tremendous. I think that it was just so unexpected and over the top, just creepy and weird. And it was just, I was not, in all honesty, expecting it to be this good, which we should have. I mean, it was Wes Craven, but I think I have to give it 9 out of 10 pints of blood.
9 out of 10. Okay, you had me with the long pause there. You had me thinking you were gonna give this a 10.
To be honest, I was really wanting to go 9.5, but I think I had to go 9. And I guess my reasons behind it being a 10, as I've mentioned in one of the other reviews that we did, is that really when you're giving a movie a 10, you're saying that this is the staple for all other movies to follow. And this movie comes very close. As I kind of mentioned before, it hits on acting, it hits on storytelling. There's a couple parts that are, maybe a little unrealistic. The movie's an hour and 42 minutes long, to be exact. And I think that I don't think that there was any dull moments in this movie, which I think is really nice. Everything felt important. There's some things that maybe I wish would have been not necessarily explained, but I guess a little more detail. I guess I would have liked to know maybe the backstory on some of the other kids down there, like how long they've been down there. We know that, of course, Roach is really the main kid in the movie that was from under the stairs, but just me really liking to get all the details in. I would have liked to know, just a little more details. How long have you been there? Like how long have these kids been here? What are some other things that they did to these kids? Like they're feeding them people, like, because she mentions that she makes dolls of other people that have come, whether it's like repairmen, robbers, all this other stuff. Like, so does that mean that it's very common that people come to rob their place? Like, Are they is there people that come to like fix their TV or something, and then they see something so they have to kill them? Like, I wanted to, I guess, get a little bit more backstory on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that I definitely see that. Definitely see that. For me, I think I'm gonna have to give this an 8 out of 10. Pints of Blood. It was definitely a solid movie. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. Um, and I just think that it, as far as horror for me, it could have been, there could have been other moments where the killings and stuff could have been more graphic or so forth. I really like my movies gory. And another thing was things like you said, like we didn't understand who these exactly who these people were from, that were put under the stairs, like if they were just little boys that were lured into the house, or if they were really just repairmen, because we know that Spencer was like this gas person, but he got killed, so why was he different? Just different things like that. It left a lot of room for us to kind of put our own spin on it. But I do enjoy the movie. The acting was really spectacular. As far as the story, that I think is a very solid story about the little kid wanting to save his parents and so forth. He just ends up in the wrong house. But I think as far as the killings go, and as far as me being a little bit horrified, I think that's what kind of knocked it down a couple. But I mean, I do admit that there were moments that I felt my heart racing, like when Fool gets put into the cage first and he's surrounded by these people. Like, I didn't know if they were gonna be good or not. I didn't know what to expect coming into this movie. These people under the stairs were good people or bad people, or just different things. I didn't know what to expect with that. But I did enjoy the movie. I would definitely recommend it again. Definitely would watch it again. That's for sure. It's the few times that I watched it just to review this, I definitely enjoyed it. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I would say that this movie kind of like, I know last week with Ma we talked about, well, it's not really necessarily a lot of horror, but it's more so this kind of creepiness of Ma. I think that this film was, while not your gory horror film, there was some kind of like, there's a lot of blood involved, but it hit the horror spectrum on just being so weird and so creepy, and a lot of like shock and awe.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it was definitely weird. It was definitely something different, something I hadn't even seen before, nothing I had heard before. But which goes into one of my fun facts. So let's get that started. So Wes Craven was inspired by real life news, where this story about burglars broke into a house, and by the time the police got there, those burglars had already dispersed. They were nowhere to be found, but the policemen had heard noises coming from these locked doors, and they finally got to open those doors, and there were kids who were locked in the rooms for days, and were hardly fed. They were never allowed outside. They were basically prisoners. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We loved the story so much, you and me, as far as what you've said. But to kind of know that there's an actual story like that in the real world, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I never heard of anything about that. I'm gonna have to look that up. Hopefully there's some type of like documentary behind that, because that's crazy. I want to learn more. I like to deep dive on that kind of stuff. It's very interesting to me. That's crazy. And Craven, he did a fantastic film on it. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's crazy, and I would love to learn more about it as well. So another fact here, or another trivia thing. So Craven chose Wendy Roby and Everett McGill to play mom and dad, after they had played husband and wife on the TV show Twin Peaks. and he enjoyed them so much on that show that he just pulled them exactly over to his movie.
Huh, I've never seen Twin Peaks. I've eaten at Twin Peaks, but I now want to go back and at least watch maybe a little bit of footage from the show to see how their characters were in there, to see if it translated over well, or if they're just complete opposites. Because I mean, they killed this role, so I feel like they would have had to have done Twin Peaks very, very well.
Oh, for sure. I've seen maybe a few episodes of Twin Peaks. I don't necessarily remember them in the show, but yeah, I mean, I know for sure Twin Peaks is definitely a weird kind of thing, and then this movie is definitely weird, so it's got to translate somehow, and I'm excited to go and watch Twin Peaks and kind of point that out as well. I know for sure here that Wendy Roby had mentioned that in an interview somewhere, that she said this is the funnest movie role that she had ever been or participated in, and she was so weird and so out there, and everybody on set just really had the best time of their lives. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I could see that with this movie. I feel like it'd be a real fun one to really be a part of. So
yeah, I mean, imagine being Everett McGill dressed up in all that BDSM stuff and just like scaring people on set or something.
That would be pretty fun. That costume was probably hot as heck, though. Don't be doing that in San Antonio.
For sure.
Jesus.
Another one I have here. So that prayer that was on the tape recorder in the bedroom where you see get fooled by that tape recorder. The prayer that mom and dad were saying on that was, "Now I lay thee down to sleep," which is actually a nod to when Nancy does that prayer in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then it also appears in Craven's first film, The Last House on the Left. So he kind of trickles that in throughout his films.
Ah, that's cool. It's like little Easter eggs.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too. And then you mentioned this earlier, Sean Whalen, who played Roach, was 27. But he actually ended up playing this 15, 16-year-old in this movie. And it also ended up being his first movie role ever. And then this last one, I thought this was really interesting. So Hilary Swank actually auditioned to play Roach. And Roach was open to both male and female genders. So she had an audition for that role.
I don't even know what to say. I will say this. I think Roach had to be a boy.
You think so? I think it could have been interesting if Swank ended up with that role. Like, I think her and Alice would have got like more of that connection than Roach being the boy.
But see, then I think about it story-wise, because they would have had to change the story, because she mentioned saying that they wanted a boy. That's why every single one down there was a boy. So it'd be like, why is it that Hilary Swank her character, who would have been a girl, of course, like, why is it that she's the only girl? Like, the only thing I could think of is maybe if they said like, oh, she was there like before me, before Alice, because it seems like they wanted a perfect household of like one boy, one girl, right? So, and Alice remained because she never spoke evil, said no evil, none of that stuff. So I guess that could have made sense if you did it like that. Like, okay, Swank or Roach, being Swank, was there first. She spoke evil, had her tongue cut out, blah, blah, blah. So then Alice showed up. But I don't know. I feel like I liked it the way it was.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The way it was is a lot better. And I'm glad they didn't cast it that, because I do agree with you. I think they would have had to change that, possibly the way you said it, where she came before, or maybe, they ended up being sisters somehow, and, Hilary's Roach would have just been, acting up, speaking against the evil or whatnot. But I just thought that was interesting in general. Hilary Swank is a pretty big name out there, so I don't know if Swank had appeared in films before 1991, or if this would have been her first film. But definitely an interesting fun fact.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to look that up too. I'm not sure if she was in anything prior. Did you have any others, or was that your last one?
Oh, that's my last one. It wasn't really too much, but I think the ones that I found were definitely something different as far as little trivia and fun fact.
Of course, yeah, definitely. And I'm gonna be looking up that story behind the kids they found in the under the stairs shortly after we get this edited. But without that, so that's gonna be it for episode 8 of the Gruesome Task podcast. Once again, you can follow us on our socials on Instagram at Gruesome Task Podcast, on Twitter at The Gruesome Task. You can find myself at _ under the knife on Twitter and at Deonte on Instagram.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at that guy Jose, and then on Instagram, or I said Twitter, and then Instagram is j.a.gallegos. Yeah, reach out to us. We are more than happy to discuss movies. Anything else you want to discuss, any news that might have come in, any recommendations. It's always fun to do this every week. This is the highlight of my week, and I just want everybody to enjoy it as much as we do.
Yes, and we thank you all for watching. Once again, if you are listening to us through iTunes, please leave a review. We'll read it on the show, and we are very excited for a lot that's coming up at the end of the season, leading into season 2. So we hope you all are as excited as we are.
Yes, for sure. Big things happening. And we're excited to share that news with you very soon. But for now, just, keep in touch with us, leave those reviews, give us 5 stars or whatnot. And yeah, we appreciate everybody who's been listening and who has listened at one point. This is a great thing.
Yep, and with that, everyone, how many pints of blood are you drinking?
Life sucks, and then you die.